Equifax is facing a massive class action lawsuit following the announcement of a massive security breach, which indicates that hackers have accessed the personal data of over 143 million Americans. Bloomberg has described this as an unprecedented hack. It compromised the private information of about 143 million people. Now, users alleged that Equifax was negligent in failing to protect consumer data, choosing to save money instead of spending on technical safeguards that could have stopped the attack. Data revealed included social security numbers, addresses, driver's license data, and birth dates. Some credit card information was also put at risk. I would argue that the credit card information is the last thing to worry about when you consider the fact that social security numbers are out there. And once someone has access to your social security number, especially people with ill intent, they can do some pretty terrible things with that information. Now, the fine people over at Equifax found out about this security breach back in July, and they have just announced it. But another thing to keep in mind is that this class action lawsuit is alleging that some of the executives over at Equifax had sold their stocks in days following the security breach to the tune of $1.7 million, I believe. And so, gee, I wonder why they did that. They're saying that they didn't have knowledge about the hack prior to selling their stocks.
All right, so let's break this down. First of all, they're only suing for $70 billion. So this is as big a lawsuit as you'll find. And it's about half the country that it affects. Yeah. So if all of our private information, I mean, look to the right of you, look to the left of you, well, one of you has had your information compromised. So probably us, not probably, almost certainly. Sure. And you guys, if you're watching.
So let me give you another twist to this story that should concern everyone. So Equifax and its lobbying arm has been fighting certain consumer protection rules.
Really?
And one of those rules has to do with class action lawsuits. And so if you were worried that you were implicated in the security breach and you went to Equifax's website where they allow you to search to see whether or not you're at risk, you should have read the fine print, because the fine print indicates that you are waiving your right to a class action lawsuit if you search your name in that database.
That's insane.
It is insane, and that is exactly why you need the Consumer Protection Bureau, which fights aggressively to prevent that type of behavior from happening. But under the Trump administration, things are likely to change. So these are all things that you should keep in mind. The Consumer Protection Bureau is there to protect you, the consumer.
Yeah, so often these situations that you agree to, terms and conditions, just in our routine taking on of apps or whatever else, they force arbitration instead of your real ability to sue. And what Anna's talking about is that in this case, so they're forcing arbitration. That's in the terms and conditions of what Anna's talking about, where you look for your stuff and you make sure that you weren't part of this hack. And if you were, hey, we're going to provide you with our service free for a year, but you're going to agree that you'll just arbitrate this should there be any problem. And that then means that you can't be part of any class action suit in any kind of way to seriously pay off what is a huge piece of damage to your reputation, to your ability to conduct basic commerce in life, right? I mean, as you say, Anna, this is devastating for people.
It is devastating, especially considering the sensitivity of the data that these hackers have access to. It's likely to be sold on the dark web now, and it's going to cause all sorts of problems for hundreds of millions of Americans.
So luckily, it's not about sensitive information, though. No, they have everything. So this is as bad as it gets. Look, on the one hand, I want to give a little bit of context here. Look, people hacking's a hell of a thing, and it's really hard to keep track of. It's really hard to prevent, and so I have some sympathy for them in that regard. And then I have some sympathy in that they didn't announce it immediately, because you're going to have to take a lot of precautions, and you got to make sure that you've got everything straightened out before you let people know, and then the panic begins, right? So having said that, if you're a mom and pop shop and you got a restaurant and you took some credit card bills and some jerk hacked you, Jesus, you don't have enough money for security, I hear you. If you're Equifax and you have 143 million people's information, no, it's incumbent upon you to take tremendous precautions to make sure. I mean, that's the heart of your business. So you've got to take those precautions. Now, again, I don't begrudge them taking the month to figure out how to announce this news. And in the case of the 3 executives who sold their stock after the company knew, but before the public knew, and made $1.7 million or sold $1.7 million worth of stock, well, let's give context there too. It could be that these executives are super rich, so you'd have to look at the period of time. Is it different than a normal 3-day period or a week or whenever they sold it off? Maybe they sell off $1.7 million all the time. Etc. But if you find, but you should look into it.
And the SEC should, yes, and they will probably.
Yeah, and if you look into it and you find out, no, it is not at all normal, and all of a sudden, right after they found out about the hack, these 3 executives who knew sold $1.7 million of stock with insider knowledge that they have that the public didn't know, and it is not within any range of normal, they should go to prison.
Yeah,
that's how it goes.
Yeah, that's how it's supposed to go, but we know how it really goes.
Okay, then do we have a government anymore? I mean, that's the right wing says that, like, oh, we were rule of law. We don't have a government anymore. We don't have a country anymore. Well, if white collar criminals can commit fraud and criminal acts anytime they want, well, then what we're saying is we're not a democracy anymore. The law only applies to the middle class and the poor, but the rich can do whatever they want. And it's gross. So again, they have to investigate it. I'm not saying by definition it is, but if they found out that it is insider information, they should definitely go to jail. And then lastly, Anna's right. The most egregious part of this is the part where they have you sign away your rights. I mean, think about it. Okay, we screwed up Equifax, and so all of your private information is out there, and it could cause you tremendous damage. So in order for you to figure out how to fix the damage, you come to our site, and then, tricked you. You came to our site, you just signed away your rights to sue us. No, that's not remotely acceptable. So I don't know if the government will ever protect the average American, or all they do is protect the rich and the multinational corporations, but we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out what happens here with Equifax. Because if they are allowed to just say, we screwed you over, you have to come over and look to see if you got screwed over. Tricked you, now you won't be able to sue us. And the government doesn't do anything about that, then we're not a democracy and we've lost everything. And we're just ruled by a new set of lords and royalty that are playing with our lives. Support independent media. Come join us at the Young Turks. TYTnetwork.com/join.